Nipad Paramahansa Padavadika the Shishima's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBD Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavadika Astota the Shishima's Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Gopadan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mai Purdham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Brihat Madanga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 5, Text 4. Yad Vijnano Yad Adaro. Yad Vijnano Yad Adaro. Yat paraswam yaratmaka. Yat paraswam yaratmata. Ekashrajasi bhutani. Ekashrajasi bhutani. Bhutar evat mamayaya. Bhutar evat mamayaya. Yad Vijnano Yadadaro. Yat Parastvam Yadatmakaha. Ekashrajasi Bhutani. Bhutar Evat Mamayaya. Others, please. Yad Vijnano Yadadaro. Yat parastvam yaratmakaha. Ekashrajasi bhutani. Bhutar evat mamayaya. Vaishnavis. Yad Vijnana, the source of knowledge. Yat Adara, under whose protection? Yat Paraha, under whose subordination? Twam, you. Yaratmaka, in what capacity? Ekaha, alone. Srijasi, you are creating. Bhutani, the living entities. Bhutai, with the help of material elements. Eva, certainly. Atma, self. Mayaya, by potency. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear Father, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? And under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all entities with material elements by your personal energy? Purport. It was known to Sri Narada Muni that Lord Brahma attained creative energy by undergoing severe austerities. As such, he could understand that there was someone else superior to Brahmaji who invested Brahma with the power of creation. Therefore, he asked all the above questions. Discoveries of progressive scientific achievements are therefore not independent. The scientist has to attain the knowledge of a thing already existing by means of the wonderful brain made by someone else. A scientist can work with the help of such an awarded brain, but it is not possible for the scientist to create his own or a similar brain. Therefore, no one is independent in the matter of creation, nor is such creation automatic. Omigana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So what Narada Muni is doing here, this is called darshan. Darshan. He's asking a lot of questions, such as, going back a couple of verses, he says, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? Under whose control is this all being done? And this morning he's asking, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? And under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all this material, all these entities with material elements by your personal energy? So as I said, this is referred to as darshan, and Prabhupada talks about that in a couple of lectures he gave. Well, actually, one was a lecture, one was a conversation, but I'll read you something about it. So Prabhupada says here, we are worshipping Govinda Adipurusham. Actually, I'm just going to skip ahead. This is called philosophy. No, you have to find out the original. That is called philosophy. Philosophy means searching out the original. Darshan. In Sanskrit, the word is called darshan, to see the original, to find out the original. So the original information is given by Vedanta Sutra. What is that origin? Atato Brahma Gigyasa. One should be inquisitive to understand about the origin. That is the chance in this human form of life. We do not know the origin. The scientists, they explain, perhaps like this, it was like this, perhaps it might be like this. That is not explanation. So the direct explanation, very nice explanation, is given in the Vedanta Sutra. What is that origin? The Vedanta Sutra says, Janmad Asya Yataha. The origin is that from which everything is born. That is the origin. Now we have to find out what is that thing from whom everything is born. That is Krishna. The great sages, they have searched out what is that origin, and in the Brahma Samhita it is said. And Prabhupada, in another place, he goes, any phenomena that has a natural, is caused by some natural law, and if we go on, what is the cause of that natural law, then ultimately we find Krishna. Everything, Janmad Asya Yataha, everything has got a cause, original source. So if you make actual research work, what is the cause of this, what is the cause of this, that is called darshan. Darshan means finding out the cause. Therefore, philosophy is called darshan shastra, to see the cause of the cause, cause of the cause, cause of the cause. So ultimately they have found Krishna is the cause, original cause of everything. So that's what Narada Muni is doing here. This is darshan. He's trying to figure out, ascertain what is the original cause. And the Prabhupada has mentioned here that this is actually Atato Brahma Gigyasa. This is the chance in the human form of life. This is what a human being is supposed to do. Try to find out what is the original cause. So, and of course, as Archita pointed out, and probably other speakers have also mentioned, Narada Muni's doing this he's setting an example. He knows the answers to these questions already. You know, he's fully aware of the answers to these questions, but he's doing this for the benefit of the people who will read the Bhagavatam to know this is what you're supposed to be doing. So, in one sense, this is a very simple thing to do. I mean, say somebody comes along and goes, okay, you know, and asks all these questions, and they're fortunate, and they get the answers. They're fortunate enough to you know, meet somebody who's actually able to give them the Vedic answers, and they accept them. Then is that business finished? Okay, you get the information, but so is that game over? You know, okay, now I know Krishna's the original cause. Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, it's a step in the right direction, but no, you got to go further. You need to do more than just have the information. Ultimately, you want to realize that information. You want to, you know, come to the platform of being a pure devotee of Krishna. So that takes some doing. The next step is, after you get the information, you have to engage in the process. You have to apply the philosophy, practically apply the philosophy in your life. Okay? So, all right, so say somebody's prepared to do that. They'll chant Hare Krishna and they'll do so many other things. Is that it? You know, have they reached a perfection at that point? Well, yes and no. I mean, once again, it's another step in the right direction, but you still got to go further. You got to be able to engage in the process in a particular way. And I'm going to read an excerpt from a purport from the 4th canto, which really, in my mind, clearly, hang on, describes what the real challenge is of, you know, coming to the platform of pure devotional service. Because it's in one sense, it's easy for somebody to just, okay, accept this information, and it's even easy for somebody to just do the things we're doing. You know, it's not hard to chant Hare Krishna. I mean, it's not impossible to get up early in the morning. You can do all these things. This is the challenge, though. This is the actual challenge. So this is from the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 25, text 25. Prabhupada says, every living entity is a hero in 2 ways. When he is a victim of the illusory energy, he works as a great hero in the material world, as a great leader, politician, businessman, industrialist, etc. And his heroic activities contribute to the material advancement of civilization. One can also become a hero by being master of the senses, a Goswami. Material activities are false heroic activities, whereas restraining the senses from material engagement is great heroism. And then further down in the purport, Prabhupada says, it is said in the Prema Bhavarta that when a living entity wants to enjoy material nature, he is immediately victimized by the material energy. A living entity is not forced to come into the material world. He makes his own choice, being attracted by beautiful women. Every living entity has the freedom to be attracted by material nature or stand as a hero and resist that attraction. And it's simply a question of the living entities being attracted or not being attracted. There is no question of his being forced to come in contact with material energy. One who can keep himself steady and resist the attraction of material nature is certainly a hero and deserves to be called a Goswami. So that's it right there. That's the challenge. The challenge is you know, okay, it's good to accept the information, and it's good that you're engaging in the process, but the real challenge is this. The challenge is to keep oneself steadily engaged in devotional service and resist the attraction to try to satisfy your lusty desires. And if you could do that, then you deserve to be called a Goswami. Then you'll be elevated to the platform of pure devotional service, and beyond that you'll be empowered to make disciples all over the world. But that's no mean feat. That takes some sincerity and some real serious, you know, engagement in devotional service. Anyway, Prabhupada goes on to say that the living entity can take one of 2 positions in this world. He may become a servant of his senses, or he may become master of them. By becoming a servant of the senses, one becomes a great material hero. Well, if he's lucky, if he or she is lucky, because we could see that not everybody who tries to becomes a servant of their senses becomes a great hero. You can wind up as a homeless person in the street, or et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, And it says, but by becoming a master of the senses, he becomes a Goswami, a spiritual hero. And that's for sure. So, as I said, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do to remain steady in devotional service and resist the attraction to satisfy one's lusty desires. And we could see that we know that's not easy, because there's practical examples of that. We could see even in our movement, there have been so many devotees, many of known to us, and they've been serious. They had a lot of association with Prabhupada, and they were very seriously, apparently, engaging in devotional service, and they had difficulties. They ran into difficulties. And, I'm saying that in the mood of not like, yeah, they were nonsense. No, these were serious people, these were devotees, these were intelligent, sincere, and serious, serious devotees, and still you run into difficulty. And aside from that, even the Bhagavatam, there's so many places in the Bhagavatam where it's acknowledged, that it's a challenge. It's not easy. Like there's one verse in the 4th canto, let's see if I can quickly pull it up here, of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Which I used to know by memory, but I don't anymore, so I'll have to. It goes, I can't remember who's speaking. I think Prithu Maharaj is speaking here. It says, or maybe it's the 4 Kumaras. Anyway, it says, the devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord can very easily overcome hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. But this is very difficult. The non-devotees, the jnanis, the yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So in other words, it's hard. It's hard, except for pure devotees. Everybody has a real hard time with this. Jnanis and yogis are trying to become free from this desire, this tendency to try to satisfy their lusty desires. They're trying to become free of it. They're not successful. They're not successful. Prabhupada says in the purport here that the jnanis and the yogis, although trying to be free from the desires of material activities, actually become more and more entangled in false philosophical speculation or strenuous attempts to stop the activities of the senses. They're unsuccessful, but the devotees are successful. So how are the devotees successful? What is it that the devotees know how to do or do that enables them to become successful ultimately in becoming free from this, how would you say it, force? It's like a force to try to gratify the lusty desires. Well, it's explained in this purport about they engage in superior desire. And Prabhupada gives this interesting example of how that works. He gives the example of a river that's flowing in a particular direction, and then when let me see. Actually, I think I'll read the sentence here if I can find it real quick. He goes here, yeah. Similarly, a devotee with intelligence plans so many things for the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness that stagnant material desires to become overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. Okay, that's the purport. And here's the example he gives. He says, it may be argued that the waves of a river are incessantly flowing and they cannot be stopped. So that's like the material desires. But when the waves of the river flow toward the sea, and the waves of the river flow towards the sea, but when the tide comes over the river, it overwhelms the flowing of the river, and the river itself becomes overflooded, and the waves from the sea become more prominent than the waves from the river. And then here's Prabhupada's purport. Similarly, a devotee with intelligence plans so many things for the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness that the stagnant material desires become overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. And that seems to be, that's like the secret of how to do it. And I actually saw that. I used to read this purport before 1980-something, and what the heck is Prabhupada talking about? I could never understand that example until I was living in Australia, and they had a farm on a place called the Kolo River. And one day I was visiting that farm, and I was walking, and it was like, I can't remember what time it was. It was kind of early in the morning, right after breakfast, and I was looking down at the river. It was in like a gully, and it was flowing in one direction. And then I came back a few hours later, and the river was flowing in the opposite direction. And I went, what the heck? What's going on here? And I asked the devotees who were living on the farm, and they explained to me, yeah, this is the tidal river. This river, the Kola River, flows into the ocean. And when the tide comes in, just like Prabhupada says in the purport here, the tide overpowered the waves of the river, which were flowing down towards the ocean, and the ocean flowed in the opposite direction. So anyways, it's a very accurate analogy, metaphor here. So that's what Prabhupada's saying. We have to make plans. We have to make plans to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. This is a movement. It's not a stagnant. It's not called the Krishna consciousness stagnant. It's called the Krishna consciousness movement, which means you got to go someplace, right? We can't be just satisfied to be in a particular spot. And by doing that, amazing things happen. Among them is you're able to overcome that hard-knotted desire for material enjoyment. An example of this, what I'm saying here, has taken place just right here in North America, maybe all over the world, in the last 6 months. 6 months ago, this pandemic thing started, and a lot of us were thinking, myself for sure included, that okay, well, that's it for book distribution for a while, because you can't get at the people, and everybody's can't go to work, so even if you were able to get at people, they're going to tell you they don't have any money. So where's the question of distributing books? It's just going to, obviously, it's going to go way down. And I was thinking like that, but not everybody was thinking like that. And there's some devotees who weren't thinking like that, and they, Vaisheshika, for instance, among them, they decided, well, no way, this is lemon, but let's turn it into lemonade. And that's exactly what they did, and that's exactly what happened. They just decided to, encourage devotees to figure out other ways to distribute the books. And, amazing things happened. I just was part of a telephone call yesterday where I heard about these amazing results, and I'll share them with you. So, somehow or another, in North America alone, to date this year, it's not even finished, 4,500 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam have been distributed. That's the figure I got. Sir is shaking his head. Maybe it's, I don't know. I got a fact checker there, so at the question and answers, we'll give him an opportunity to give us maybe the real numbers. And I was told that 23,000 were distributed globally. And I asked about, well, how about 5 years ago? What are the figures? And 2018 and 2019, there was 7,000 sets each year, 7,000. So the figure for 2020 worldwide was triple of 2018 and 2019. And, that's really amazing. That's really amazing. Especially, in 1977, Prabhupada wrote a letter to a group of devotees in Laguna Beach. Drita, Vrata, Stan, I can't remember, it's about 5 or 6 of them. And he said in that letter, he said, I heard that you're making plans to sell these sets of books, encyclopedia style. And he said about that, he said, this will revolutionize book distribution and afford greater spreading of Krishna consciousness than any preaching done so far. That's what Prabhupada said. So, this is like going a long way towards that. 23,000 plus 7, that's 37 right there. That means, I think it'd be safe to say that there's at least 100,000 sets of Bhagavatams out there, maybe more, because, the set's been available for like 45 years. That's a very conservative number, I would say. So that's a lot. So anyway, the point is that in doing that, these devotees, who if they weren't engaged, they could have been falling into Maya, because, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. If you don't have engagement, that's a perfect opportunity to fall into Maya in different ways. But because they took this up and they decided, okay, let's go for it. And amazing things happened. Like Prabhupada said, I guess it was here in Los Angeles, 1975, a famous walk on Venice Beach where Prabhupada was disturbed that the books weren't coming out fast enough. And he said, okay, you got to speed it up. They're down on Venice Beach and they're walking, and Ramaswar was there, Radha Balba was there. So they after Prabhupada said that, they fell back and had a little powwow, and they came back to Prabhupada and said, okay, Prabhupada, we've been producing one book every 4 months. I think it was 3 months. Now we're going to produce 2 books a month. And And they were very proud of that. They thought, okay, yeah, Prabhupada's going to be really happy with that. And Prabhupada went, no, maybe not at that point. He said, no, I want 17 books in 2 months. And they just went, and actually then Ramaswami went, but Prabhupada, that's impossible. And then Prabhupada took his cane and stuck it in the sand, and he said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. And they just, they blew their mind. But they did it. That was the point. Archita was here. He was part of it. Maybe Sura was here. I don't know. But, they thought it was impossible. But when they rolled up their sleeves, when the devotees just got it out of their head that it's impossible, and they just started thinking, well, can we do it, or how are we going to do it? They started thinking, how are we going to do it? And then somehow or another it happened. They did it. They actually got those 17 books produced in 2 months. In the same way, who would have thought that so many sets of Bhagavatams could be sold, especially considering the circumstances? But the devotees just decided, can we do it? How are we going to do this? And they just made it happen. They just got on the telephone, they got on the internet, they did whatever they did, but somehow or another, these amazing things happen. And Vaishya Shekhar Prabhu was saying in this talk he was giving yesterday that this is Raganuga Bhakti. When you're in this kind of like mood of like, how do I do this? How do I do this for Krishna? Yeah, and you're experiencing like anxiety to do it, and maybe losing sleep. He gave that example. And he said it's in the mood of the Panchatattva. It's also in the mood of the 6 Goswamis. There's that verse, Gayanto, how's it go? Gayanto chakada harer gunavaram baba bibuto mudha. It talks about how they're just running around like madmen, shouting, Queen of Vrindavan, Radharani, where are you? They're mad after Krishna. So in the same way, when you're mad after trying to, distribute Krishna consciousness, it's in the mood. It's in the mood. Actually, there was one thing here many years ago in Los Angeles where Ramaswar was just talking about how preaching Krishna consciousness, or book distribution in particular, was in the mood of the gopis, and devotees were getting a little kind of uncomfortable with that, so they actually contacted Prabhupada and they asked about that. Prabhupada, he's saying Sankirtan is in the mood of the gopis. They just had this whole Gopi Bhava problem here, probably around the same time. But Prabhupada said about that, he wrote back to them, he said, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Sankirtan is in the mood of the gopis, because you're just like the gopis. What are they trying to do? They're not trying to get to Krishna. They're trying to make it so the other, push. Krishna likes this gopi, push her. Prabhupada said like that. Radharani, push her then. So it's in the mood of the gopis. That's trying to engage other conditioned souls, try to bring them to Krishna. So anyway, that's the culmination of the darshan. It starts with asking the questions, trying to understand, the ultimate cause of everything. And then when we do that, then the next step is, of course, how to realize, that ultimate cause of everything, Krishna. And those were some thoughts on how to go about that. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Brahma.
Hare Krishna. We have, I know, 2 persons who were devotees. One of them is very intelligent. He used to study in Santa Barbara University. Another one, he was very, very intelligent, and he was book distributor. He was really convinced in philosophy, and still they completely turn away their mind. And one of them, who is in Santa Barbara, he started to, pushes his PhD or whatever in something, science. So when I was also young, I was asking these questions. They told me, read these books, try to chant, but still I have so many questions, and always come in my mind, why should I believe all these things? Could be, some very intelligent person write down all these things, write down, and, they make some story. India is all these holy places, and he, anyway, so many points they make in the way, then it's possible, to believe in God and believe in Krishna, but still, could be just story, could be just some kind, why should I believe?
Okay.
Because there is example people who try, to did all these things. Maybe one of the bigger fact is, okay, in India there is places, where everything's happened. But even that, people, there's controversy theory, there's so many liars. In your books it's also explained, there's so many liars, cheaters. Prabhupada said people are cheating. So why should there's also maybe some cheating in...
Okay, let me have a go at it. All right, so first point is Prabhupada said, don't be surprised by who stays. No, don't be surprised by who leaves, right? Be surprised by who stays. No, it's indicating it's a challenge, okay? Also, elsewhere, Prabhupada said it's like engaging in devotional service is like engaging in a tug-of-war. Tug-of-war means is, you got to keep pulling. As soon as if you're in a tug-of-war and you relax, then your opponent's just going to pull you over to the other side of the line. You lose. You got to keep trying. In the first Bhagavatam class I heard, after I joined, the person who gave the class used the analogy of it's like swimming upstream. Just those of you, if you've ever been to Mayapur and you jump in the Ganges, unless you start swimming upstream, guess where you're going? You're going downstream because there's a current, you see? So you got to be constantly trying, but it's not blind faith. That's the second sort of part of your question, the doubt you were describing. It's not blind faith. You do have to accept, what's the word? Provisionally, you accept all this, but then there's a process, and that's what we're doing. You engage in the process of devotional service, and we're told by the acharyas, and hopefully some of us are experiencing to some greater or lesser degree, that if you engage in the process very seriously and very sincerely, then you experience something. You'll experience a taste for chanting. You get some realization that, hey, this is, I think there's something to this. It's not just like a bunch of words. It's not just rhetoric. There's an experience here. I'm experiencing something that indicates to me that unless this were true, unless all this stuff were true, how could I be experiencing what I'm experiencing? How could I be experiencing this taste for chanting? Or how could I be experiencing whatever if all this wasn't true? See? So that means it's not like you're necessarily realizing everything right at that moment. You're realizing everything, like all Krishna's pastimes are revealed to you. But Prabhupada said if you're cooking a pot of rice and you test a grain and that grain is cooked, that's a good indication that the rice is cooking. So in the same way, if you engage in the process and seriously and sincerely, and you're getting some reciprocation, some feedback, then that's a good indication that, you could keep going. Just put the doubts in the car park there and just keep pushing on, and hopefully things will keep getting better and better and better. At least that's the approach I take. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Okay, thank you very much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Fourth answer? I didn't find it. You said 425.5, but I wrote down it was...
No, 425, Michael, 425.25.
Yeah. Also, repeat after me.